In some cemeteries in Eastern Europe, archaeologists have found bodies buried in ways that defy any known Christian ritual. Corpses placed face down, iron objects by their feet, sharp tools resting directly on their necks. Why would anyone go to such lengths with a dead body? What was supposed to happen if that body wasn't treated this way? In late July 2023, in a 17th century cemetery outside Pien, a small town in southeastern Poland, archaeologists came across one of these burials. The body belonged to a child. Its sex could not be determined. It was buried face down, and near its feet, someone had placed an iron padlock. It was not an ordinary grave, and it wasn't an isolated case. A year earlier, in the same cemetery, the team had found another unsettling grave, the body of a young woman, also buried with a padlock, this time placed on her toe. On her neck, someone had left a sharp sickle. This unusual type of burial belongs to a very specific category within funerary archaeology, so-called apotropaic burials. What did they mean, and why were they performed? First, let's provide some context. In post-medieval Poland, the undead were far more commonplace and less refined. They were believed to possess the souls of those unfortunate enough to die prematurely in epidemics, by suicide, or simply before being baptized. So, when it came time to bury these poor souls, care was taken to ensure they weren't an easy vessel for a malevolent supernatural force. It's impossible to know the exact intentions of a post-medieval undertaker. The padlocks, the sickle, and the face-down position are all associated with burials known as apotropaic. That is, people buried in a way that wards off evil. Such evil could come from forces external to the grave, or more often, from within. If a vampire or other undead presence were to awaken, the reasoning was that the padlock and the face-down position would keep it at bay. Apotropaic graves of this type date back to the High Middle Ages and have also appeared in Slovakia, Hungary, Austria, and Romania. In addition to the features observed in Pien, these burials can include decapitations, stakes driven through the chest, or protective coins placed in the mouth of the deceased. They tend to appear most frequently during times of mass tragedy, epidemics, wars, or any other time when people witness tragedy around them and assume that evil is at work. On the other hand, archaeologists have also made a surprising discovery in the village of Ponczewo, located in northern Poland. Human remains dating back to the 17th century were found beneath the Church of the Annunciation of the Blessed Virgin Mary. These remains were discovered after identifying a stone slab with a skull engraving. At a depth of approximately 2 meters, scientists located 3 skeletons, one of which particularly caught their attention. One of the skeletons discovered had a peculiar feature, a sickle placed around its neck. 17th century Poland was the ideal setting for this. It was a particularly harsh time, a century of wars and crises. Throughout the 17th century, Eastern Europe was struck by repeated waves of disease, epidemics that advanced without clear explanation, including outbreaks of cholera, left in their wake sudden and difficult to understand deaths. In this context, fear was not limited to the living. It also extended to the dead, especially those whose death seemed anomalous, premature, or unjust. This is not an isolated phenomenon. Burials with very similar characteristics have been documented at other 17th century sites in northwestern Poland. Even written sources reflect this climate of terror. An account dated 1674 describes an entire community terrorized by a specter that was believed to drink human blood. The panic was so great that the townspeople themselves ended up exhuming the corpse and decapitating it. But epidemics were not the only pressure on these communities. The 17th century was also a period of profound religious tension. During the Counter-Reformation, the reinforcement of Catholic dogma intensified the discourse on the devil, witchcraft, and the threat of evil. Instead of dispelling fear, this climate fostered the resurgence of older popular beliefs inherited from Slavic folklore, where restless dead occupied a central place. Therefore, the term anti-vampire burial is misleading. The figure of the vampire, as we understand it today, is modern and simplifies a much more complex universe. In the Slavic imagination, there were multiple entities associated with the dead: the upior, an impure or cursed spirit; the straziga, a demonic being with a human appearance; or the strigoi, a shape-shifting creature associated with the consumption of blood. Funeral rituals were not directed at a specific creature, but at any dead person who might return. To understand what sparked the fear in cases like Pien's, the human remains are being analyzed for diseases, physical anomalies, or unusual traits. In a society under such pressure, epidemics, wars, famine, and religious tension, any difference could become a sign of danger. And yet, there's another unsettling possibility, that there was nothing unusual about these people, that neither the woman nor the child had any illness, deformity, or any other abnormal characteristic. As happened during the witch trials of the 17th century, sometimes a rumor, a personal conflict, or the need for a scapegoat was enough to transform someone into a supernatural threat. Perhaps more than protecting themselves from the dead, those padlocks and sickles were the last desperate attempt by the living to give shape and meaning to a fear they couldn't explain, except through superstition.